Okay, guys, so we talked about the wealthy custodian on one of our other conversations, and here he is with us, Jeff. I just want to give you a second to introduce yourself. I appreciate you so much for coming and talking to me and trying to help and figure out like what I'm going to be doing with my finances now that I'm starting to understand FIRE and retirement and all of these things. But let me give you a second. Can you introduce yourself and kind of tell us how you came to be known as the wealthy custodian?
Well, I kind of have a long history, but the short of it is Dan and Scott at 403bwise.org, that used to be 403wise.com, interviewed me, and Dan has labeled me that. I don't consider myself that wealthy, but considering my low income over my lifetime, I guess I would be considered wealthy. I have a kind of a different lifestyle, and because of that, that's allowed me to build wealth. Most people work on their income. That's probably your most powerful tool, is building your income. But unfortunately, as people go through life, they increase their lifestyle to match that income. And I went the other direction. I didn't raise my income. I used my money and invested it. And over time, it's grown.
So how long have you been a custodian?
I've been a custodian 33 years. I got the saving part from my dad, and I think people call it hacking life. He called it cutting corners, and I self-educated myself about investing and stuff.
So where did you go? Where did you turn to start learning about investing?
Basically, I started attending Shasta College back in 1988, and I was in a lot of their remedial English classes. One of my, I don't know if people call it handicaps or whatever, I'm not really strong with language arts. Okay. And I worked really, really hard to try to improve me, but it's just never one of my natural skill sets. Even logging on, I was trying to make sure I had written down the codes and everything properly, because I have a tendency to leave things off at the end and processing issues and stuff. But I worked really hard at it and worked my way up through the classes, the remedial classes. And by about 95, 96, I kind of realized that I'm white collar, I'm blue collar with intellectual thrown on top, or white collar on top, because most people probably wouldn't attend junior college for 15, 16 years taking classes, because I love to learn and I'm a lifetime learner. So about 96, they had a class, and I talked about this before, Scott and Dan's podcast. I had taken Investments 44 out at Shasta College. That's the local junior college here in Redding, California. And that semester just opened up my whole eyes to a whole nother paradigm, to use one of my college words. And what I loved about it was that instructor actually worked in the financial services industry, and he got his start there by actually being a caddy on the golf course. Okay. and when we were in that class, he would actually have a group of us every week report, why did the stock market do this? What in the economy? What in world events? What made it move? What made everybody, go up or down? I remember we had to pick 3 hypothetical stocks, and we were given a certain amount of play money, and we had to report on that. And that just opened my eyes. And I remember just going, wow, there is going to be a different path for me. It's not going to be the traditional thing. And during my time in our society, if you don't go to college, it's almost like you're going to be a has-been, or you're just not going to be able to survive in life. And that is totally a fallacy.
Drives me nuts. Sometimes like different high schools I've worked at, and they always have like a college day at the end of the year. And I wish it would turn in more into like a career day. Like, what is your goal to do for your career? What is your goal to do after that? It doesn't have to be about like, what state are you flying off to spend money on a career that you don't know that you're going to have? And a lot of people that, you know, when you go in, you're not even decided. A lot of kids in college, like, I don't know what I want to be, but I want to go to college. So they just go and spend and spend and spend.
Yeah, so by about the mid 90s, I realized, and in the following semester, they had just started offering a personal finance class.
Awesome.
And I had taken that course, and I remember in the back of the book it talked about the different retirement plans, and then I learned about what a 403b was. And I remember walking into our district office. I work in a very small school district in a rural part of California, and I went into the business lady at the time. I said, "Do we have a 403b?" And they said, "Yeah." And then that started my whole journey learning about being in fixed annuities and fees and how to get out of that, and how I got Vanguard on our vendor list. And you can write a whole book on that.
Well, that's a great transition, because I feel like we've had a few of these conversations now, and people, including myself, it's like I have memory issues. That's one of my like handicaps or whatever. I have to write everything down and review it over and over. So like for me, 457, 403b, still, even after reading and talking to everybody, I still have to kind of refer to my notes to see which is which. And can you, for the people who have watched so far, the several that we've done so far, I know there are others who have said the vocabulary kind of flies by them. Can you give us like a basics? Like, what did you take out of your investing class as far as 457, 403b, and pensions? Like, compare, contrast.
Okay, I can do that. Not a problem.
Okay.
Fortunately for me, I remember things, and I remember them for a very long time. So I don't know if that's a gift or not. But basically, in our country, we have three basic philosophies. We have three basic things, and you've probably heard it before. Is the three-legged stool. You have Social Security.
Okay.
That's a pay-as-you-go system. We're using today's payroll tax, because I know some teachers don't pay into it. In California, they don't. We're using that to pay past people that have retired. And unfortunately, that's underfunded, and COVID-19 hasn't helped that, because a lot of people are out of work and they're not funding it. So the actuarial said by 2029, we are going to be dipping in. We will only be able to pay 75% of the benefits promised. So there will be a 25% cut. Okay. And in 2018, we started dipping into the trust fund, because for many years we had extra funds coming in. So they put it in a side account, probably not using the right nomenclature, but in 2018, they started reaching into that to make up the difference. And by 2028, 2029, was 2034, that's supposed to be exhausted. So that's one part of it.
Social Security. Got it.
Now we're gonna move on to a defined benefit plan and a defined contribution. Okay. You and I both have a defined benefit plan. That is your New York State's teachers retirement system. Okay. I have out here in California, CalPERS. That stands for California Public Employees Retirement System. Okay. Both of those systems use a formula. Okay. And it's pretty simple. Yours and mine use the same formula, but there's different tweaks to it, and you can do it pretty easily. Mine is what they call a 2% at 55. And you're going, what does that mean, Jeff? Well, at age 55, if I have 25 years of service in, I go 2% of 25 years of full year service credit. That equals 50%. Okay? So, you're getting 50% on what? Well, I'm a pretty low wage worker, well, relatively speaking. I have a pay rate of $3,700 a month. Okay? A monthly pay rate. Okay? And that pay rate gets averaged over 12 months. Okay? So what they would do is they would add up 3,700 for 12 months and divide it and get the average. Then I would be entitled to 50% of that.
Okay.
Okay?
Got it.
Because you realize sometimes you have, maybe for the first 6 months, my pay rate was $3,650. Okay? So they average it. I think your pension, they average it over 36 months. Your pension in New York, they average it over 36. Okay, we have Social Security.
Yeah.
And we have a pension, and that's the defined benefit. And that benefit is defined by a formula. And that formula is used with everybody, but it's defined to the person. Like me, I've been in it for a long time, so I'm going to get a lot out of it. I started at 20 years old. I never left. I never did any of those things. So I'm going to get a benefit more than somebody that comes into the system when they're 40 or 35 or 50, because they're not going to be able to generate. One part would be the service credit, because you got to provide a service. So now we're going to move on to the defined contribution plan. And those were started back in 1978. And I cannot remember the gentleman's name, but I've heard him on a couple of podcasts. And there was an IRS code, 401k back in 1978. And that's how we started the proliferation of the 401k plan. The 401k plan was generally designed as a supplemental. It wasn't to supplant the defined benefit plan. I look at a defined benefit plan and a defined contribution plan like a husband and wife. Each one has its inherent strengths and weaknesses. That's the analogy I use. Yep. Right. And the defined contributions would be like IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457s. And all those numbers mean is they just mean IRS codes. And why the 401k was such a hot deal was, you got to remember, back in 1978, our tax rates were extremely high. I know everyone cries and moans at today's rates, but they are the lowest they've ever been in the history of our country. So having these supplemental plans where you could put large amounts of deferred pre-tax dollars in was a huge deal. Okay. So you got a 403b would be for nonprofits, 5013Cs, 457s are governmental, and 401ks are private. And IRAs, 401ks would be there. And then you can put IRAs. You can put a Roth on there.
Who's DC, who's DB.
Yep, you can say that. And you can put Roth, and that's named after Senator Roth, because he's the one in 1998 that put the legislation in to allow after-tax dollars. And we could go into the whole thing here. So you have those. So those are the, basically, I call them the middle-class safety net.
Okay.
You're generally paying into Social Security. If you're fortunate enough like me, you have a pension. So there's another income stream. And then the other is all voluntary. You have to do it yourself. You're the one that has to fund it. You're the one that has to become an investment advisor to yourself unless you outsource that to somebody else. You're the one that has to take the stock market risk and not freak out like we did in March when it dove down 35%. You can't sell. You're the one. It's like, to me, I use it like a standard transmission in a car. You got to know how to shift. You got to know your shift points. You got to know how to let the clutch out. The pension is like automatic. You just come to work. You're a loyal employee. They don't cut your hours at the school, but you're going to give up the flexibility of leaving. And 30 years later, you'll get a lifetime income with no market risk. So basically, that's the way our system is set up in this country. We have Social Security. Some people call it social insecurity. We have a pension. Yeah, a lot of people don't have it anymore. And we have the defined contribution that, what is it? Less than 30%, 40% of the population even has one.